Hi, my name is Maryam. I am a natural-born claircognizant and clairsentient, which means that I was born clear knowing and also clear feeling on a psychic level. And I'm really here today to make the connection or the correlation between psychic phenomena and ET activity, because the two things are not mutually exclusive. A little bit about me and my background. I was born to a psychic family. My maternal grandmother was very psychic. She predicted things like the Northridge earthquake, and she used to read cards for us to tell us our future. So I was born to a very open-minded family, which allowed me to explore that side, the spiritual side of me. Now, growing up, even though I knew, because I was claircognizant, that there was more to our reality than what we were being told, what I didn't really quite understand was that there was, in fact, a psychic connection or a spiritual connection to the extraterrestrial phenomena. Interestingly, though, however, there was a time, and I don't know what possessed me to do this or say this. I was standing out in front of my parents' home. It was in my early teens, and I looked up at the sky at night and I said, and I don't know how I knew that they would hear me, but I looked up and I said, we're going to be together again one day. I don't know what possessed me to do that, because again, I didn't know that there was a connection or that they could communicate with us telepathically. It was just something possessed me to say that. The idea that extraterrestrials didn't exist never made sense to me at all. I mean, just look up at the night sky. How many stars do you see? How many planets are revolving around those stars? So it just was absurd that ETs weren't real, and it was absurd that we were the most advanced species, just from a very practical sense. But the spiritual connection, that I didn't make until later, and that occurred about 15 years ago when I found Daryl Anka and the messages from Bashar, and I had this aha moment. And I've always been a seeker. I've always been somebody who has been looking for the truth about our reality. And at that point, when I found Daryl, I really dove into my spiritual practices and really became quite enamored with the ET phenomena. Well, like many people in 2020, COVID changed things dramatically for me. I had now time to practice all of the spiritual know-how that I had far more frequently and dive in to those practices as deeply as I could. And unbelievably magical things began. And that's really where I want to share the experiences to help connect the dots between spiritual phenomena and ET activity. I was doing an art project with my son, and this was about 2.5 years ago, would have been 2021. And the instructions for the art project were to take a piece of paper, fold it in half, open it up, drizzle paint on one side, fold the paper back up, smush it up, and then open it up again. And the image that appeared in front of me was of an extraterrestrial. The next set of instructions were to take a black marker and outline the image, which is what I have done here. And it's incredible. It was an ET that showed up. And I took this image, this piece of artwork, and I put it up in my office. And for 2 years, I would stare at this picture, this artwork, and I would talk to it. And I would say, what are you trying to tell me? What is this about? And it took me a while, but there were so many messages in this piece of artwork that came through. So the first thing that you'll notice is this incredible wingspan that comes, or this aura that emanates from this extraterrestrial. And I feel like the Bible really is, the Old Testament is an ET story, and that some of those stories, like Jacob's Ladder, really was a misinterpretation calling ETs angels. And this image really illustrates that these wings that were perceived in the Old Testament were really the aura, the tremendous aura that were emanating from the ET beings that were coming down. But a couple of other really incredible and significant symbology in this image is the serpent that is coming into the ET's head. It took me so long to figure out what that thing was that was going into the head of this image. Well, I've recently come to learn that that is symbolic of the Kundalini experience. And you will find other images like this. If you just type it into Google, you will find other very, very similar images that came up. The other piece of evidence in this piece of artwork that, again, I did not draw. In fact, I'm a terrible artist. I could not draw this image for the life of me, was the robe that he's wearing. The robe that he's wearing has a very high collar. I have come to learn that ETs often do wear, especially the higher dimensional ETs, do wear these robes with very high collars. And if you look very closely at the image, you will also notice that this being has a very, very obvious body and even has feet. So this was really incredible, an incredible launch into my spiritual journey. It really things started to fast forward after this image appeared into my life. And I want to be very clear, the only creative liberty I took in creating this image was to add the third eye. Every single other detail in this image was absolutely created by accident. Even the eyes were there. I simply colored them in just for effect. So this was really incredible. But shortly after, I started to experience other unbelievable phenomena. The first thing that happened is I was coming home from my parents' house. I was driving down a very busy street. So for those of you who live in Los Angeles, it was on Haskell Avenue. This is a street that has a lot of cars. And as I'm approaching the freeway, there was an owl in the middle of the road waiting for me. Or for my whole family, really, and it was staring at our car. And we are barreling towards this owl, and this owl is not moving. It is just staring at our car. We had to come face to face and stop, and it just stared at us. And again, here I am learning more and more about this extraterrestrial phenomena and this contact, and sure enough, owls appearing is a message from them that is a typical experience. Over the past 8 months, things have absolutely shifted into high gear. And in my meditative practices, in my spiritual practices, some ET beings have shown up, helped me open up my channels telepathically. They have opened up my crown chakra, and I now can bring in these ETs through my body and speak with them through trance channeling and bring messages forward, which I do intend to share today. And this is only the beginning again. Physical things are moving in my presence. Things are disappearing, reappearing, and moving. I'll share a few of these stories with you that are unbelievable. The first thing that really stood out for me was I was making hummus, homemade hummus with my son, and we were using a can of chickpeas, and after I dumped the chickpeas into the bowl, I tossed the can into the garbage. A couple hours later, I come back, the can is out of the garbage in my sink, and there is a sponge inside the can. And I get mad. I'm like, who would do this? This is just gross. So I take the sponge out, I throw the chickpea can away, I go to bed, I wake up in the morning, and the chickpea can is back in my sink. Now I'm really livid. I'm thinking somebody in my family put their hand in the garbage can and took this piece of garbage out and put it in the sink. My husband wakes up, comes out. I am just mad at him. Why would you do this? He's like, what are you talking about? So this is the first of many experiences. Then on another occasion, we were making nachos. I took there was a small bag of cheese that I had dumped onto the chips. I finished the bag. I threw it away. I told my son to get me a new bag of cheese, which he did. I opened it. I poured the cheese onto the chips. A week later, I go into my refrigerator, and the old bag of cheese is not only in my refrigerator, but it's halfway full of cheese. And I'm thinking, this is insane. How could this be? I threw this away. It was empty. I know this bag was empty. I threw it in the garbage. But the experience that really brought me to my knees was, happened about a month ago. I was taking my son, I don't know what it is with my son, he's always involved in these occurrences. But we're on the way to the store, and we get into the car, and I noticed that the gas gauge is below the fill line. Enough that I get concerned. I always like to have a full gas tank. So I said to my son, I want to fill this gas tank after we go shopping because I don't like to not have a full tank again. We could have an earthquake and we won't be able to get gas. And he said, oh, okay, well, he's so young. He didn't really understand how the gas gauges work. So he kind of shifted over and I showed it to him, and I showed him how the gas gauge drops when you need to fill the car with gas. And I said, look, we can only drive 265 miles. You know, when the car shows you the range, I said, we can only go 265 miles. Well, he said, Mommy, well, that's a lot of miles. He said, well, if you filled the gas tank, how many miles can you go? And I said, I don't know, about 324, 325. I took a guess. I knew it was over 300, somewhere around there, 325 miles. All right, so off we go. We go to the store, and I had this overwhelming feeling of just good luck as I'm pulling into this store. We go shopping, we come out, we come back into the car, I turn it on, and the gas gauge is above the fill line. And I thought I got into the wrong car, because now the range on the car says I could go 333 miles, which is an angel number for those of you who are in the spiritual world. And I thought we got into the wrong car. I said to my son, did we get in the wrong car? This can't be. And I'm into this panic. Remember, all these other things are happening around me. Objects are moving around me. Objects are manifesting. This was just unbelievable. They put gas in my car. I couldn't understand it. So we start driving, and I'm trying to find a human rational experience really for all of these occurrences, but this one really blew me away. I called my husband. I said, is there any way gas can expand in your car? Like, is this possible? He laughed. He said, no. I said, I just got free gas. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. And I hung up the phone, and I'm going, uphill and downhill. You know how gas swishes in your car. I thought maybe somehow that would change the range. No, the whole way home, all the way back into my driveway, and until the very next morning, it was at 333 miles. What's really incredible about this story is that I do energy work for people. I help people raise their frequency and their vibration. And a friend of mine who I do this work for happened to be calling me for this kind of help. I did not know he was calling me, but now I'm frantic. I'm like, how could this be? I got this free gas. I call my friend back, I'm telling him this story, and he says to me, Maryam, what's the number? What's the number? What was the range? How many miles could you go? And I said, 333. And he goes, get out. I said, what? He said, I'm calling you because I need help today. And that's my number for everything is going to be okay. It was unbelievable. And I go off and I do this energy work for him. He gets this exam. It has the number 333. I will tell you, this experience absolutely solidified for me that these things are real. They are not an accident. And because I channel the ETs, I know it is them that is helping me. So fast forward, I decide I need to find out what is going on. And this was what brings me to my message today. I go into a deep channel, and I don't often get a lot of very concrete messages or predictive messages. They tend to be traditional in nature, and I have a theory about that. I don't think that we're supposed to know everything, but when we are supposed to know, they do give us the messages. And I asked them, I said, what's going on? Why is all this happening? And what they told me is that there is a split happening into two Earths. We are moving into a new reality. Some of us will shift to this new reality, and some of us will stay behind. And that because my frequency and my vibration is high, because I've done the work, I am experiencing both realities at the same time. In other words, two timelines are overlapping, they're converging upon each other. So I'm experiencing a timeline where I used the gas, and I'm experiencing a timeline where I didn't use the gas. But here's really the message for humanity, is that we are moving, and it is your choice whether you want to move to this new earth where we are living in a more harmonious and cohesive planet. That is up to you. But in order to experience that and to move to this new earth, we need to raise our vibration collectively. And that will happen if we work from a heart-centered, or move from a heart-centered place in every interaction that we have on earth. And that's what I do for people, is I help them raise their vibration so that they can have these experiences as well. And you don't have to be psychic, you don't have to be a channeler to go there. You just have to move from a higher vibration, from a love frequency to get there. Now, the only little set of bad news that they gave me was that the coming next few years, and I know this might seem obvious because of all the things that are going around us at the moment, is that we're going to experience a little bit more chaos for a greater awakening before we can fully experience this new 5D reality, this heaven on earth-like experience. And that there will be some who won't make it. And I asked about that. They told me that the people that are in my world will generally be safe. So these things will be happening in my purview. I will be able to see the chaos that is ensuing, but that there will be a level of protection. And so I was curious when I asked them, I said, so does this mean that Los Angeles is safe? Because I live here in Los Angeles. Maybe it's just our city that's going to be protected. And they said no, that there will be people in my own neighborhood that won't make it through the next few years. And that the best way to protect yourself truly is to raise your vibration, is to move to a heart-centered way of being. And that absolutely is the best way for us collectively, not only to move to this new earth, but it is the best way for us to have open contact, which is something I deeply, deeply desire to have. But in order for us to have open contact, we need to raise our vibration. So for those people who have experienced what I call 3D contact, where they physically have been on ships, the reason that they've had to be sedated is because the vibration of a lot of these ET beings is extremely high. And we have not been able to match that vibration. That's why a lot of times when you hear experiencers tell stories about coming into contact with these beings, they have this sort of panic moment. So they're sedated so that they can have the experience without freaking out, so to speak. So that's what I'm here to do, is to raise the vibration. Now, I have had experiences myself. I have been on ships. As far as I know, they have not been in a physical form, although that could just be that I don't remember. I do believe that they are protecting my psyche to minimize the trauma. But I'll share with you two experiences that I have had, one in meditation and one in a dream, that absolutely match what a lot of 3D experiencers have had. The first one, I was in a deep meditation and I suddenly ended up on this ship. And I could see space. It was clear as day. It was as if I was on this ship with this being. This being was probably 6 to 7 feet tall, and he was standing to the right of me. And try as I might, I kept trying to look at his face, but it's like I wasn't allowed to see his face. I don't know why. But I could see space, and I could actually see the frame, the window frame. And I was basically told that I had to go back. And they sent me back. And the second experience that I had was in a dream state, very similar. I'm on the ship, and there's that same 6 to 7 foot tall being. I can't see his face, and there's other beings on the ship with me. I can't see their faces either. For some reason, I'm not allowed to see what they look like clearly. But they were almost, irritated isn't the word, but they turned and told me, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And they kicked me off the ship. They put me on this platform and sent me off the ship. Interestingly, my feelings weren't hurt by this, that I was sent back. Instead, I had this overwhelming feeling that I got this. I got this experience on Earth. I know exactly what to do. So my sense is that we all of us in the disclosure community play a role. You know, we have people who were in the military that are whistleblowers. We have 20 and back program survivors that are beginning to remember. We have people who have been on these ships who come back and tell these stories. But then you also have people like me who are doing it on this very spiritual and telepathic and channeling level. And all of us are one piece of the disclosure process. And the more and more people keep their hearts and minds open to the reality that this is true, the faster we will get to open contact, which I know is something that many, many people want to experience. So I hope that brings my story about Bob and my story about the gas, I hope that brings some evidence and some proof that this is a very, very real phenomena, and that the spiritual experiences are not separate from the extraterrestrial. They are not mutually exclusive. They are one and the same. So I would encourage meditation. I would encourage that raising of your vibration, and I'm always available to help if that's something that anybody's interested in.